Well, here we are again on another talk and drive. This seems to be the most
Continue on
popular.
US 95.
Well, welcome to another talk and drive. This seems to be the most popular format of the videos that I've been uploading, and it's where I get the most positive responses. One of the suggestions was stop with the background music. All it does is make it hard to hear you. And I heard that. No more background music, just a little road noise and me talking. And today, I think this is kind of a special project, special topic. And it's a topic that I've been fascinated with personally and professionally. Professionally, if you haven't seen my other videos, I'm a retired licensed professional counselor. I still do less than a half a dozen sessions online a week, just as a small supplemental income. But for all intents and purposes, I'm retired, but I still have a few clients. And I do pro bono, sort of free crisis work wherever I am. So the topic is intuition. I have found intuition to be a fascinating thing, and what really piqued my interest recently was Cheap RV Living's Bob Wells did a video about a month ago on intuition, and it really got me thinking more and more about the concept. Kind of in a nutshell, his view on intuition was related to an example of, say, a woman nomad camping by herself. She might pick and certainly this applies to men too, but I think this is the example he used, pulls into an area to camp for the night. And something just says in the pit of his or her stomach, this is no bueno, this is no good. And that voice often is intuition. And his advice is, listen to that voice, go someplace else. And he raises a very interesting reason why this would be a good idea and what the very nature of intuition is. And I think he's 100% right on. He says that intuition is that part of our brain that is there to take in and synthesize and sort and analyze all the sensory input that we take in, even sensory input that we're not consciously aware of. And it's possible that your intuition sees or processes the information that we weren't consciously aware that our senses took in, but the intuition sees it and says, that guy over in the corner, he's doing some sketchy things, the way his movements and how he's looking over here, that is the sign of maybe a dangerous person. And if you asked the person, did you see that guy? And the answer is probably going to be no, I didn't see any guy. What are you talking about? But the theory is that what our senses take in gets recorded in minute detail in our brain. Now, you might ask, well, if that's true, how come I don't remember in every single little thing? I don't know the answer to that question, but here's what I do know about the high likelihood that this is true. If you're my age, you'll remember the TV show Taxi in the 1970s. And one of the main characters was a beautiful redhead. Her name was Elaine. And she was played by an actress named Marilu Henner. And she was a wonderful actress. She did a great job with that. She's been in many other things. But here's something that's unique about her. She has what they call an eidetic memory. Let me explain what that is. The first time I saw this, they had a group interview with her and several other people that certainly, they weren't known, but they shared this eidetic memory kind of syndrome or characteristic. And there's something very odd going on with the recording. I need to check something. All the people in this group shared this syndrome, and here's how it goes. You talk to Mary Lou, and you ask her what happened, and pick a date in her life, any date, any year. March 27, 1986. And without missing a beat, without like concentrating, she'll immediately tell you, well, that was a Tuesday. I slept until 7. And when I got up at 7, I had 2 poached eggs, and I took a shower, and I decided to wear. She'll tell you what she had for breakfast, what she was wearing. And here's, you can make up that stuff, right? Who would know? And she'll tell you what was in the news. She'll tell you what she read in the newspaper that day. And if you happen to pick a day where she didn't like see or hear about any current events, you pick another date until she finds one, and you do your research, and you find that she's not full of shit. She really is remembering exactly what happened on that day, and there aren't exceptions. She remembers every single day of her life, and they went through these other people in the interview, and exactly the same thing. So to me, that is pretty conclusive that at the very least human beings are capable of storing everything their senses take in minute detail. Right? Is it scientific proof with a longitudinal study with control groups and stuff? No, we're not here to talk about that. But it convinced me that is true. And if that is true, that, as I'm driving now, 99% of my focus is on the road in front of me, on my side view mirrors, people passing me, etc. I am focused on the roadway, but my peripheral vision goes out to, like hands on the clock, to a little beyond 9 o'clock and a little beyond 3 o'clock. But I'm not, unless something enormous happens over there, I'm not going to really be consciously aware of it. But the idea is I'm seeing everything, and I'm hearing everything I can hear, everything I can smell, all my senses, taste, hearing, touch, all get stored. And if there is a mechanism in my brain that has access to all that data, not only has access to that data, but is able to synthesize and analyze and come to conclusions, that's a pretty freaking amazing tool to have. So what problem? How do I specifically invoke it? And how do I know if it's real or if it's really my intuition? Because I believe in our minds there's a chorus of voices, a chorus of internal dialogue and thoughts. And they don't all come from the same place. Often with clients, in particular clients with trauma histories and clients that have trauma triggers, I talk about the primitive brain, the brainstem, the place where the fight or flight response is. That's where our brain associates a stimulus with danger, and it responds with fear and anger. And remember, anger is just a manifestation of fear, right? You don't get angry unless there's some kind of fear behind the anger. So anger and fear, I want to run, I want to fight, or it's freeze. That's a human and animal response to extreme fear is to freeze. That can save your life as well as fleeing or fighting. That's the fight or flight instinct. There are other instincts that we have. We have, in particular, I talked about in my last video, sort of in the sexual realm, the sexual feelings and instincts that we have, I think, is a different area of the brain. And its original design is to promote procreation, to human beings that engaged in sex were survivors, right? Because you procreate, you create more human beings. It seems to be logical that here is we were become highly sexual beings. And there's another voice associated with that. When you are attracted to someone, when you feel those very powerful emotions, that is, that is another voice. And then we have the amazing stuff that happens in your prefrontal cortex, like higher level thinking, critical thinking, compassion, kindness, artistry, all those amazing things that happen largely in the conscious mind. That part of the mind has a voice as well. And I bet I'm missing other areas of the brain that have voices, and love to see your comments on other distinct parts of the brain that may have a voice in the room. What I have noticed is in particular, starting with the fight or flight, that is a loud, insistent, emotionally charged voice. Right? The sort of sexual one is not really as loud, but it can be aggressive. It can be, I don't want to say loud, but I want to say insistent. Insistent, and not as loud, but full of a lot of emotion. And that part of the brain from our higher level thinking, it can be anything really. Some of that thinking can trigger sexual thoughts or fight or flight thoughts, and things start to get mixed and twisted up. But things that really originate in that part of the brain, you can kind of tie it to the thinking that you've been doing, right? It's conscious level thinking. So it could be a quiet, calm voice. It could be loud. That's a little bit more complicated. What I do believe is that the voice of intuition is always quiet and calm. Even the voice that says, hey, you shouldn't camp here, this is not a good idea, that voice is quiet and calm. And peaceful is the best way to describe that voice, or where that voice comes from. A very peaceful place. And that's the criteria that I try to use to determine if a voice, an internal voice, is coming from my intuition. People describe it like I feel it in my gut. Right? And it's like, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm not sure what I mean by that, but it seems to convey what I want to say about it. It seems to come from deep inside me. I think that's what that phrase means, from my gut. It means deep inside me. And certainly intuition is a voice and a presence that dwells deeply inside of us. And I'll tell you something else I heard years and years ago that I can't help thinking about, and I can't help saying. I don't talk about religion much, very controversial, but I will say that I do believe that there is a, like they say in recovery groups, a power greater than myself, that a lot of people call God, right? So we'll call God as a entity, an intelligent, benevolent presence in the universe, right? That transcends being human. Let's just say that. Say I believe that. Well, I was in a long couple of day lecture thing years and years ago, probably 20 years ago. And the topic was the study of humanity and the study of being and getting in touch with who you are as a human being, that kind of stuff. There's lots of seminars and classes you can take, but this was one I was taking. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly what this guy said, but he was saying, look, if you look inside yourself, if you explore your inner world, and he was talking about these voices, if you are able to strip away your ego, at least even temporarily. And the ego meaning the thing that defines you is an entity separate from the rest of the universe. You know, my ego says my name is Rob, and I'm a retired LPC, and all the things that I tell you that I am. That is my ego. And the ego it's not a good or bad thing. It just is. It defines who we are as self. He said, if you can find a way to temporarily transcend that, right, and really put your mind in the idea of you're not a human being, but you're really deep inside a spiritual being or a spiritual entity, what you get a glimpse of, that thing that you get in touch with internally, that I think is equivalent to intuition and that peaceful voice, is God. That, I didn't know quite why, but that stuck with me and resonated with me, and I've carried those few words with me over the next 20 years, and it's integrated into what I'm talking about now. And I think it's possible that it explains a lot. It could explain a lot. Anyway, why is it so important? Because intuition, I think, is an incredible tool to guide us in making really good decisions in our life. Because these other voices, these other instincts, are the things that get us off track. The well-meaning urges for safety, companionship, sexuality, all these things that are built into us to make us survive as human beings. Instincts they're not bad, they're good, and they're necessary, but they will often guide us off the track into a direction that causes difficulty and suffering for us. I remember too a movie called The African Queen with Katharine Hepburn and Humphrey Bogart. And Katharine Hepburn is this sophisticated, educated woman that ends up on this boat with a boat captain, Humphrey Bogart, he's kind of a rough and ready, typical boat captain, guy's guy, kind of fly by your seat of your pants kind of thing, and she's more sophisticated, and they're getting to know each other on this boat trip, right? And there is, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I'm not Marilyn Henner, I can't remember everything exactly, but she, I think, criticized some behavior on his part, and his answer was, hey, I'm a man, it's my instinct to behave this it's my instinct to behave this way. And her answer was, I understand that instincts dwell within all of us, but one of the points of being in civilization and being an evolved human being is to overcome these instincts when it's appropriate. And she's absolutely right. And she did it in a way, she did not condemn his instincts. She embraced them. But what she suggested was, just because it's an instinct, it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean you're making a good decision to follow instinct. I think it could be very good advice to follow your intuition. I've thought back over bad decisions that I've made in my life, and even recently, poor decisions. And often I'll think back and recognize that there was a voice telling me things were not the way I thought they were. And I would challenge that voice, and I would say, you don't have any proof. Here's my proof of how I think things are, and I would list things out sort of internally. And I certainly would have more compelling evidence than my intuition, because my intuition doesn't step forward with evidence. My intuition synthesizes information and comes to a conclusion. And I can choose to follow this point, I'm unable to dissect it because I don't have access to the same information that intuition does. But anyway, that is my little chat on intuition, and it's fairly long, but not a terribly long video. Take care, everybody.